On this occasion, we're going to be diving deep into immigration,
Okay.
a topic that's, constantly in the headlines
Right.
and really
Yeah.
woven into the very fabric of societies
Yeah.
all over the world.
Hmm.
We've got a really fascinating mix of sources to unpack today,
Okay.
touching on everything from the history of migration to the economic and social forces that shape it.
Right.
We're even going to be hearing some personal stories
Okay.
that really bring this issue to life.
Yeah.
But before we get into the nitty-gritty,
Sure.
I want to ask you something. Have you ever considered how much immigration has shaped
Hmm.
your own life, your community, even the country you live in?
Right.
It's a question worth pondering, especially as we explore the complexities of this global phenomenon.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's easy to think of immigration as something abstract,
Yeah.
something that happens over there,
Mhm.
But the truth is, it's deeply intertwined with our own lives,
Yeah.
whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
Just think about the food we eat. Yeah.
The music we listen to, the clothes we wear.
Yeah.
Chances are immigration has played a role
Right.
In shaping all of those things.
Okay, so let's start by unpacking this idea of migration
Okay.
as a fundamental human experience.
Yeah.
You mentioned early humans constantly on the move,
Right.
searching for food and resources.
Hmm.
It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
It does. We often forget that our ancestors were nomads,
Mm.
driven by the need to survive and adapt to changing environments.
Right.
And those early migrations, spanning thousands of years, laid the foundation for the world we live in today.
Yeah.
Think about the Bering Strait migration.
Okay.
Early humans crossing from Asia to North America during the last ice age.
Wow.
That single event, which we only discovered relatively recently, completely transformed the demographics of an entire continent.
It makes you wonder what other incredible journeys are hidden in our history, just waiting to be uncovered.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just survival that spurred people to move, right?
Technological advancements also played a huge role.
Yeah.
They did.
The discovery of fire, the development of agriculture,
Uh-huh.
each innovation pushed the boundaries of where humans could live and thrive.
Right.
And then came the Industrial Revolution, a game changer that sparked mass migrations
Oh, yeah.
from rural areas to cities, both within countries and across continents.
And we're still seeing the ripple effects of that today.
Right?
The rise of megacities, the growth of global trade.
Yeah.
It's all connected to those historical shifts in population. But what about the present?
Yeah.
What forces are driving migration in the 21st century?
Well, economic factors are still a major driver.
Okay.
People migrate in search of better job opportunities, higher wages, and a chance to improve their lives.
Right.
Think about the remittance economy.
Okay.
Immigrants sending money back to their families in their home countries. It's a lifeline for many, and it has a significant impact on economies around the world.
But it's not always a smooth journey.
Right.
There are often roadblocks along the way.
Yeah.
Language barriers, cultural differences, even prejudice and discrimination.
Right.
And for those who migrate without proper documentation, the risks can be even greater.
That's right. Undocumented migrants are often vulnerable to exploitation.
Yeah.
Living in fear of deportation and facing limited access to essential services,
Right.
like healthcare and education.
It's a complex issue with no easy solutions.
Yeah.
And it's made even more complicated by the political dimension of immigration.
Uh-huh.
Governments have to grapple with questions of border security, national identity, and the economic and social impacts of migration.
Right.
It's a balancing act, and the stakes are high.
You have some advocating for more open borders, arguing that it fosters economic growth and reflects a more humanitarian approach to global challenges. On the other side, you have those who support stricter controls, citing concerns about national security and the preservation of cultural identity.
It's a debate that often gets heated, with strong opinions on all sides.
Right.
And it's easy to get caught up in the rhetoric,
Mm-hmm.
especially in today's world where social media can amplify both the best and worst of human nature.
It's crucial to approach these discussions with nuance and understanding,
Yeah.
recognizing that there are valid concerns on both sides.
Yeah.
We need to move beyond the simplistic binaries of us versus them and engage in a more thoughtful dialogue about how to create fair and humane immigration policies that address the needs of both migrants and receiving societies.
And that brings us to a really important point, the human stories behind the statistics.
Right.
We often hear about immigration in abstract terms,
Yeah.
but it's easy to forget that we're talking about real people
Mm-hmm.
with hopes, dreams, and fears.
Exactly. Each migrant has a unique story,
Yeah,
a reason for leaving their home country, a journey filled with challenges and triumphs.
right.
And those stories are powerful reminders of our shared humanity.
I remember reading an article about a young woman who fled her war-torn country with her family.
Wow.
She spoke about the terror, she felt the uncertainty of the journey, and the immense relief when they finally reached safety.
It's easy to become desensitized to the human cost of these journeys,
Yeah,
but hearing those personal accounts really brings it home.
yeah.
It's a reminder that behind the headlines and political debates, there are individuals and families whose lives are forever altered by migration.
Absolutely. And it makes you realize that these aren't just abstract issues.
Yeah.
They're about people's lives,
Yeah.
their futures, their families.
It's also important to remember that immigration isn't a new phenomenon. It's been happening for centuries,
Right.
shaping the course of human history.
Right. And each wave of migration has brought its own challenges and opportunities.
Yeah.
Think about the mass migrations to the Americas in the 19th and 20th centuries.
Right.
Those movements of people transformed entire societies,
Yeah.
creating new cultures, industries, and ways of life.
And yet each wave of migration has also been met with resistance and fear. We see it time and time again. It's a cycle of welcome and rejection, integration and exclusion.
Yeah.
It's a complex and often painful history, but one that we need to understand
Right.
if we want to create a more just and equitable future.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. What stands out to you about the history of immigration? And how do you think it informs the challenges we're facing today?
Well, what strikes me is how resilient people are. Despite facing incredible hardships, they find a way to adapt to rebuild their lives to contribute to their new communities.
Yeah,
It's a testament to the human spirit.
that's a powerful point.
Right.
It's so easy to get caught up in the negative narrative surrounding immigration.
Right.
But we often overlook the incredible strength and determination of migrants.
Exactly. And let's not forget the positive contributions immigrants make to
Yeah.
their new societies. They
Yeah.
bring new skills, new perspectives, new
Yeah.
ideas that enrich our cultures and economies.
Yeah.
Think about the countless examples of immigrants who have become successful entrepreneurs, artists, scientists.
And community leaders.
It makes you wonder how different our world would be without the contributions of immigrants. But I do think it's important to acknowledge that integration isn't always easy.
Right.
There can be cultural clashes,
Yeah,
language barriers, and prejudice to overcome.
absolutely. And that's where the responsibility of the receiving society comes in.
Yeah.
We need to create welcoming and inclusive environments where immigrants feel supported and valued.
Right.
That means providing access to language classes, job training, and opportunities for cultural exchange.
And it also means challenging our own biases and preconceived notions.
Yes.
We need to be willing to step outside of our comfort zones and engage with people from different backgrounds.
I completely agree. We need to move beyond the fear and suspicion that often surrounds immigration and recognize the shared humanity that connects us all. Speaking of shared humanity, we can't ignore the impact of globalization and technology on migration patterns.
Right.
The world is more interconnected than ever before, which creates both opportunities and challenges.
Right. The internet and social media allow people to connect with others across borders, share information about opportunities, and even organize migration journeys.
Wow.
This can be incredibly empowering, but it also raises concerns about misinformation and exploitation.
And then there's the issue of climate change, which is already displacing communities and forcing people to migrate in search of safety and survival.
Yeah.
It's a global crisis that's only going to intensify in the coming years.
Climate migration is a complex issue with far-reaching implications.
Right.
We need to start thinking about how to address the root causes of climate change and create more resilient communities so that people aren't forced to leave their homes.
It's a daunting challenge, but one we can't afford to ignore.
Right.
It requires global cooperation and a commitment to finding solutions that work for everyone.
And it requires us to shift our perspective from seeing migration as a problem to seeing it as a potential solution. Migrants bring skills resilience and a fresh perspective that can help us address some of the world's most pressing challenges.
That's a great point. We often frame immigration as a burden,
Yeah.
but it can also be a source of innovation and renewal. Think about the role immigrants have played in revitalizing cities, starting businesses, and enriching our cultures.
We need to move beyond the fear-based narratives and embrace the potential of immigration to create a more vibrant and prosperous future.
And that brings us back to the question of policy. How can governments create immigration policies that are both humane and effective?
It's a tough question, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
But I think it starts with recognizing the dignity and rights of all migrants, regardless of their status.
I'm with you on that. We need to move away from policies that criminalize migration and create pathways for people to migrate safely and legally.
And we need to address the root causes of forced migration,
Okay.
such as poverty, conflict, and climate change. This requires a long-term, holistic approach that involves investing in development, promoting peace, and tackling environmental challenges.
It sounds like a pretty tall order, but
Yeah.
it's something we have to strive for if we want to create a more just and sustainable world.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that immigration policy isn't just about numbers and statistics.
Right.
It's about people's lives.
So true. We can't lose sight of the human dimension of this issue.
And we can't allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering of others.
Yeah.
We need to cultivate empathy and compassion, and we need to hold our leaders accountable for creating policies that reflect those values.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From the history of migration to the complexities of modern immigration policy. It's a lot to digest, but I think it's important to step back for a moment
Yeah.
and reflect on what we've learned.
You're right. It's easy to get lost in the details.
Yeah.
But we need to keep the big picture in mind.
And what is that big picture for you?
For me, it's about recognizing that immigration is an integral part of the human story. It's shaped our past, it's shaping our present, and it will continue to shape our future.
Yeah.
We can either embrace the challenges and opportunities it presents or allow fear and division to dictate our responses.
Powerful words. I think you've really captured the essence of this deep dive. It's not just about understanding the mechanics of immigration,
Right.
but about grappling with its deeper meaning and its impact on our shared humanity.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in shaping the future of immigration.
So where do we go from here? What can we as individuals do to make a difference in this complex and often overwhelming issue?
I think the first step is education.
Okay.
We need to inform ourselves about the realities of immigration, challenge our own biases, and be willing to engage in respectful dialogue with people who hold different viewpoints.
That's such an important point. It's so easy to get caught up in the echo chambers of social media.
But we need to actively seek out diverse perspectives and engage in thoughtful conversations.
And we need to support organizations that are working to advocate for the rights of migrants, provide legal assistance, and create welcoming communities.
We can also use our voices to speak out against injustice and hold our elected officials accountable for creating fair and humane immigration policies.
Every action, no matter how small, can make a difference.
We often feel powerless in the face of such complex global challenges. But it's important to remember that collective action can lead to real change.
Absolutely. It's about building a movement, one conversation, one action at a time.
And that's what this deep dive is all about.
Yeah.
Sparking those conversations, challenging our assumptions, and inspiring action.
We've explored the historical roots of migration, the economic and social impacts, the personal stories of resilience and struggle, and the political debates that swirl around this complex issue.
Right.
But ultimately, it's up to each of us to decide how we want to engage with this topic and what kind of world we want to create.
And that brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. In a world that's becoming increasingly interconnected, how can we ensure that migration is a force for good, a catalyst for progress and understanding, rather than a source of division and conflict? It's a question that deserves our attention, our careful consideration, and our willingness to engage in meaningful dialogue.
It's a question that challenges us to confront our own biases, to examine our own beliefs about identity and belonging, and to consider the role we play in shaping the narrative around immigration.
We've talked a lot about the macro level, the historical trends, the economic forces, the political debates. But I think it's equally important to consider the micro level, the personal stories, the individual experiences that shape our understanding of this complex issue. What are some of the stories that have resonated with you that have challenged your assumptions or expanded your perspective on immigration?
I'm always struck by the stories of resilience of individuals and families who overcome incredible obstacles to build new lives in unfamiliar places. I think of the young woman who fled her war-torn country, the family who risked everything to escape poverty, the entrepreneur who started a thriving business in a new land. These stories remind us that immigrants are not just statistics, they are people with dreams, aspirations, and an unwavering determination to create a better future for themselves and their loved ones.
I think it's also important to remember that immigration is not a one-way street. It's a dynamic process that involves both giving and receiving, a constant exchange of ideas, cultures, and experiences. What are some of the ways in which immigration has enriched your own life or your community?
I've been fortunate to live in diverse communities where I've been exposed to different languages, cuisines, and traditions. I've learned so much from my interactions with people from different backgrounds, and I believe these experiences have made me a more open-minded and compassionate person.
I think that's one of the most powerful aspects of immigration, its ability to break down barriers, challenge stereotypes, and create new connections.
It's about expanding our definition of us, recognizing that our shared humanity transcends national borders, ethnicities, or religions.
And it's about understanding that our differences can be a source of strength, not division. When we embrace diversity, we create a richer, more vibrant, and more resilient society.
It's about shifting our focus from fear to opportunity, from exclusion to inclusion, from seeing immigration as a problem to seeing it as a potential solution.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a few questions to ponder. How has immigration shaped your own life, your community, your country? What are your hopes and fears about the future of immigration? And most importantly, what role do you want to play in shaping that future?
These are questions that deserve our careful consideration, our thoughtful reflection, and our willingness to engage in meaningful dialogue with others.
We've only scratched the surface of this complex and multifaceted issue, but I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, challenged your assumptions, and inspired you to learn more.
Immigration is a story that's still being written, and we all have a part to play in shaping its next chapter.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections on this deep dive. Share your insights on our social media channels, and let's keep the conversation going.